Hi, today I'm going to show you how to open up RAW files using Adobe Photoshop and its inbuilt RAW editor, Adobe Camera Raw. There's a few different ways to open RAW files, so I am going to show you the different methods. So let's get to it. Right, so just a quick brush over RAW files. So a RAW file basically is exactly that. It's a RAW file, pixel for pixel data from the sensor of your camera or drone, and you need special software to be opening it up. So you won't be able to open it up in Photoshop itself because Photoshop will open up JPEG, TIFF, generic files, but RAW files are specific to a camera model and you need to have appropriate software to open it. So Adobe Photoshop comes with ACR, or Adobe Camera Raw, and that allows you to open up the Camera Raw files, but it also allows you to edit the RAW files, which is all non-destructive. So what we can see here is I've got two different types of RAW files. I use Windows, so we've got a DNG file. That file has come from my drone, and we've got these ORF files, which stands for Olympus RAW files. Now I shoot with Olympus, and we've got 4 files there. Not that we would know what they are, because Windows doesn't allow me to actually preview the RAW files. So we've got the DNG file. That's great because we can see it and we can open it straight up from our file manager within Windows. Very, very similar to using Finder on a Mac. And I can simply double click on that picture, and if you have Windows set up correctly, or Finder on a Mac, if we double click on that, it will automatically open up that file, and there we are. So we've opened that picture up, and now what we can do is we can make edits to this file. So we can adjust clarity, contrast, highlights. The beauty of doing this within a RAW file is that these edits will be effectively the same as if you was taking the picture and the camera was set up with taking contrast, etc. into account. But that's the beauty of the RAW file, is that the RAW file comes straight off the camera with none of that being done, so you have the full control of being able to do that. So it's a digital negative file effectively, or from your camera, without having settings applied to it like sharpness, contrast. Whereas if you were shooting on your camera and you were shooting with a JPEG file, that would be applied to the picture, but might not be the best that you can get out of it. So that's why it's always best to shoot RAW. So making these changes to the picture, but as I said, it's all non-destructive. Let's just brighten up a little bit more. There we go. Now if I open that picture, that will now be opened up in Photoshop, and that's now effectively a flat image. You can go back in it, and you can now go in there, you can now sharpen it, apply filters, whatever you want to do with it. But when you save it, you won't be able to save it as a RAW file. You'll have to save this picture as a JPEG, or a TIFF, or whatever file format you prefer. But it won't be a RAW file anymore. So if you do make any more edits to the picture, it won't be like editing the RAW file, and you might get artifacts starting to come into the picture, etc. So if we go file, we go file, save, save on your computer, you will now see that it is trying to save with a new file type. We can save it as a PSD file. I'm going to do a video over the different file types, but the PSD file, that's the Photoshop file that will retain all of your layers and all of that. If you've been working on your picture, we've got JPEG, we've got TIFF right down the bottom. Now I'll save that as a JPEG. Oh, helps if I click on JPEG. Save. It's going to ask us file quality, so large file, best quality. Hit OK, and we've saved the picture. Now if I close this, it's now asking me, do I want to save changes? I don't, because we've already done that. If I then go back to the file manager, you will see that we've got our DNG file, so our raw file, we've got our JPEG file, and if I go back into that raw file and then reopen it, you will see here that all the settings that we originally set are there. We can reset this picture. So we can go back to camera raw defaults, and that's reset that picture right back to how it came off of the camera and hasn't done any damage to any of the pixels on that file. Now, the reason why I showed you a DNG file first is because DNG files are handled slightly differently because the edits are retained within the file. Now, if you have files from say, in my instance, my Olympus or a Nikon or a Canon, so a Nikon's got an NEF file, which stands for Nikon Electronic File. You've got your files for your Canon, etc. They're handled slightly differently. So if I double click on this file, for example, it's going to be a surprise because we don't know what it is. Right. It's handled exactly the same, as I can go in there and I can adjust the clarity. So let's push the whites right up so we know the background's completely white. We can increase the contrast. Now if I open this image, exactly the same as before, we now have our file opened up in Photoshop. I can go File, we can do Save on the computer. Same thing as before, it's going to try and save it as a PSD so that it retains all the Photoshop information, but I'm going to save it as a JPEG. Hit Save. OK. Right, we've now saved that file. Now, the difference with the Olympus RAW file, and this would be the same for Nikon or Canon, is that we have created a side file. So we can see there we've got the 480.orf, and now we've got a 480.emp file. Now that is kind of like a piggyback file to the raw file that we've created, and that is what contains all the edits. So it is completely non-destructive again, as I say, so it hasn't done anything to the raw file that's come off of the camera. And if I delete that XMP file, and now I go back into this file and reopen it, you'll see that all the edits have disappeared, because all the edits are contained within the XMP file. So as I say, completely non-destructive. Now if I go back in there, let's just make some changes. You can either hit done, and that will save the raw file settings, or we can hit open image and it will save the raw file settings and open the image in Photoshop. But just for this, I'm just going to hit done and then reopen. You'll see that the XMP file has reappeared. Now if I double click on that, and this time I haven't deleted that XMP file, there you have it. There is our raw file with all the edits. That's cool. But the problem you have sometimes with some of the raw files is, as I showed you, you can't actually see the thumbnails of the images, so you don't actually know where you're opening. So the next option is that we can use Adobe Bridge. Now, Bridge comes with Photoshop. So if you're paying for, say, the photographer's package from Adobe, you will also have Bridge. You can install it. I recommend you do, because it is a very useful tool. So it's very similar to the to your file manager within Windows or Finder on your Mac, but it will show you all of your raw files. It will show you previews of your raw files. If you edit the raw file, as we have done with this, it will actually preview the raw file with the edits. So there's our JPEG file, there's our raw file. Now, what is very useful with using Bridge is it actually allows us, it gives us access to be able to open up JPEGs in Camera Raw, which can be useful because of some of the tools in Camera Raw can get some more information out of your JPEG file. Or we can simply click on the JPEG file, hit open in Camera Raw, and that will open it. So that's a JPEG file. It's all flat, but we can go in there and make changes, as you can see, to a JPEG image as well. So although it is a Camera Raw editor, some of the tools in there I like, and I actually prefer to use those than in Photoshop if I'm working on a raw file. If I'm working on a JPEG file. So that's really useful. If you double click on a raw file with that in Bridge, that will automatically open it up in Adobe Camera Raw. But here's one extra feature that a lot of people don't realise, is that you can open up multiple raw files into Adobe Camera Raw. Now, you can't do that from Windows, from the file manager. If you try and open up multiple images into Camera Raw, it will only open up one at a time, and you'll have to edit one at a time. The beauty of opening up the raw files from Bridge is that if I select, by pushing the control button, and select 3 pictures in this instance, and then right mouse click and go open in Camera Raw, we then have the ability, as you can see on the left hand side, there's 3 files. If I hold the control button or the shift button, which will select all 3 pictures at the same time, when I then adjust, let's just say clarity, let's brighten the whites up, let's make it ultra contrasty. I'm just doing this just for extremes. I'm going to turn that off. You will now see that all 3 of these pictures have been edited in exactly the same way. So you can see on here, all the settings I've done to the first picture has been applied to all 3 pictures, and that's really useful, especially if you're working in a studio. So, for example, these pictures that I'm showing you here, these pictures have been taken in our studio for a second-hand product that we sell. We can apply all of the settings on one picture, and it will apply to all of them. Now, because we're under the same lighting conditions, the edits are going to be very useful. So let me just select all 3 pictures. The other thing that you can also do is if you've got settings that you've saved, so I'm going to load some settings here, and studio product shots, so that's a raw file setting that I've saved in the past. I can click on that, and that will apply that to all 3 pictures. So if you're always in the studio and you're always using the same lighting conditions, you can apply those settings straight away onto your picture. Job done. You can also save the settings as well. So if you want to save them, you go save settings. Here it gives you a list of all the settings that you can save. You can even save crop if you've got your you've got your item in the same place and you do the crop. You can save a crop as well, so you can apply that to all of your pictures all at the same time, and then you can save all of those settings. Hit save. it will ask you what do you want to save it as. So we're going to save that as just video, just for this example. Hit save. Now if I hit cancel, none of those settings will be applied to these pictures. And you can see that because if you've got, you see this little box up here with like sliders on it, that's indicating that changes have been made to that picture. These pictures don't have that. So again, if I then select all three pictures, opening camera raw, there's our three pictures, load settings, video, open, and there we have it. It has applied those settings to those three pictures, and then if we then press on open images, that will then open all three pictures into Photoshop as separate images, which is pretty cool. And again, as I say, a lot of people don't realise that you can do that with Camera Raw. So let's just close these. So I don't want to save them. So it's the same process as before. Actually, I'll just show you. So if we do File, Save, that is going to want to save it as a PSD file or a JPEG image, etc., etc. But for now, I am just going to close all of those and just show you one more trick that you can do with Adobe Camera Raw. So let's say I open this image. There's all our settings. Let's open this image into Photoshop. If we copy that layer, so we duplicate the layer, I'm not going to worry about the name at the moment. Actually, I'll go in there and let's change that to copy. If I then turn that into a if I convert that for smart filters, it sometimes takes a little while. Right, there we go. We've converted that to a smart filter object. If I then go filter and then camera raw filter, we can also, from within Photoshop, we can then open up the camera raw settings as if camera raw was being applied as a filter. So I can then go back in here, I can adjust the whites, highlights even further, clarity, texture, let's add a bit of extra texture to the water. Let's add a vignette to this picture as well, just to, and click on OK. We now have a camera raw filter that's been applied to that picture. So it's just another route of being able to edit a photo using Camera Raw. And again, a lot of people don't realise that. We can save that then as a PSD file. Save that. Okay, there you go, save that. You'll see that we've got a PSD file for that, we've got a JPEG file, and we've got a DNG file. So there's a number of ways of playing around with raw files, and you can see the XMP files that have been created for the Olympus raw files. But as I say, you can't see them, so I always recommend using Bridge. Bridge will hide the XMP files, but will actually show the pictures with the edits, as you can see up here. So there you have it. Multiple ways of opening up raw files and why you'd want to do it that way. Hope you found that interesting. Please don't forget, smash that like button. Hit the bell if you want notifications of when we produce new videos and upload them. And if you've got any comments, pop them below. And don't forget, thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. Keep following us for more Photoshop tutorials. Bye for now.